Patriotic American who believes that those colors mean something.
Right. Trump supporters divided over who should win the Senate race in Alabama.
Big Luther's been making a big difference in Washington, D.C., and he's just getting started.
I think Roy Moore is the guy that's going to represent Donald Trump and fight the establishment.
2 Israeli security officers and a border policeman shot to death in a suspected terror attack right outside of Jerusalem.
President Trump unveils a new travel order indefinitely and almost entirely cutting off U.S. entry for citizens of several nations.
The clock ticks down on what is likely the final Obamacare repeal push under current voting rules.
If somebody doesn't fix Obamacare soon, the majority of counties in this country are going to be down to one provider.
Fox and Friends.
That's right. Welcome to Fox and Friends. It is a Tuesday morning news show that starts talking about Monday Night Football.
Why wouldn't we?
Right. Well, the NFL, that controversy, we talked about it all day yesterday. Every TV station you turn to, that's the biggest
They were
talking
talking
story.
about it on,
Let me give
on
away the
Food
ending.
Network.
The Cowboys won. Now to the real news.
All right, but I feel a lot better about this morning because they're showing it. Let's just go through all the elements of what happened yesterday at the Cowboys and Arizona game, and then we want your reaction. We want you to write us and tell us how you feel about it today.
So as they started the Monday Night Football game last night, the entire America's team, the Dallas Cowboys, took a knee before the national anthem. And then everybody stood for the national anthem. But here's that moment of unity. Watch this.
The Cowboys players wanted to show unity, but they were very adamant about wanting to separate that message from the national anthem. Sean?
All right, Lisa, and as they take a knee collectively, boos can be heard from this sellout crowd in Arizona.
So the Cardinals were standing the entire time, locked in arms. I love the way they talked about this because I'm reading it first, and they said smattering of boos. That is loud.
Oh, there's a lot of boos.
But Jerry Jones leaves it to him because he is not allowed, for either implicit or demanded, no Cowboy has taken a knee before this, since it started over a year ago. So this is about as good as you could script it, in my humble opinion. Kneel before, flag comes out, stand during.
Well, so there was a lot of booing from the Dallas Cowboy and the Cardinals fans when they took the knee. But then when the flag came out, well, this is what America had to say. Well, we had it a minute ago. Anyway, there was a gigantic cheer when the national anthem was played and the flag
And the flag is unfurled. You've got the Cowboys right there on the sideline. Arizona was standing in the end zone. They stood locked in arms. Here it is right here. Listen to this.
And that's what it looks like a second time.
And guess what happened? The Cowboys team stood up when that happened. So they knelt down before, and Jerry Jones said it was because we wanted to be unified as a team. We did not want to be diminished by controversy. We wanted to show a message of equality. He, in fact, donated $1 million to Trump's campaign. And then when that flag was unfurled, both teams were standing.
Right.
So, so two other stories. There's so many different aspects to this. First off, weigh in on what the Cowboys did. Tell us what you think. I think that if you were going to show some unity as a team, this is the hard thing. When you're a team, what they teach you from day one from training camp in front of these people who've been with the Cowboys for years is I don't care if you're the quirky guy, you're the funny guy, you're the strong guy, you're the guy who barely made the team. You're one family united against your opponent. And when one person, when you have something like this so divisive, a coach's job is to find a way to keep the team humble and understand they got to go in the right direction. That's a true leader. So they have to lock arms to stay in sync and pull for each other. I don't care what your background, how you feel. However, standing during the national anthem, I think does a better job getting their message out.
100%.
It takes patriotism out of it. So what is your message? Now I want to know. But when you disrespect the flag by not standing, or the anthem by not acknowledging, that's when people go deaf to your issue.
So that's better. That's better. I think everyone can be happy with that. If you want to protest, do it peacefully. We understand that's what they wanted to do with the Cowboys. Also, the Steelers. Yesterday we were talking about the guy Alejandro Villanueva who came out and stood at there he is, standing right outside of the tunnel. He told his team, I just wanted to see the flag. Didn't realize y'all were so far behind me. They were about 20 feet behind him in the tunnel.
But as it turns out, he later came out and said, I felt like I threw my whole team under the bus because he was supposed to stand with the team captains, essentially at the front with the squad. But at the last second, he decided to do that. He poked his head out. Apparently, the team captains were still back in the tunnel, and he felt bad about that image. Ben Roethlisberger apparently was supposed to stand with him.
One of the captains, right?
The quarterback for the Steelers. And apparently what was going on, there was some chaos backstage, and there was a flag being brought through the tunnel or something like that. He couldn't go out. He said later, the idea was to be unified as a team when so much attention is paid to things dividing our country, but I wish we approached it differently. I personally don't believe the anthem is ever the time to make any type of protest. For me and many others on my team and around the league, it is a tribute to those who commit to serve and protect our country, current and past, especially the ones that made the ultimate sacrifice. What he said was he wished his team would have gone out and stood on the field, but apparently it was the decision of the coach.
Steeler fans are extremely divided on this. You know, the Pittsburgh Penguins are Stanley Cup winners. They're going to the White House. So the Pittsburgh Steelers, next week, I think they're going to have to come up with a different plan. That one, they said, we don't want to involve in politics, so we stayed in the locker room. When you stayed in the locker room, you actually signed on to a point of view in this issue. The other thing to keep in mind, too, it's fundamentally this. They want to say the president's talking about race. They say they're not, and the players say they're not protesting against the country and the flag, disrespecting the flag and the country. I don't think either thing is possible. You can't try to get your message out by disrespecting the anthem and country and expect people to hear what you say next. And for the president to keep saying over and over again, this is not about race. I believe if the PGA was doing this, if the NHL, predominantly white league, was doing this, I think if tennis was doing this, especially internationally, the president would have the same problem.
See, I believe in finding the silver lining. And for me this morning, I feel a lot better about this because it's these teams. You know, when you're on a team, you rely on each other. You're a family. And they're linking arms and they're saying, I don't care what color you are, what your religion is, what your background is. We are a team and we love one another and we're going to support one another. Although we love, and with that said, we love the American flag. We love this country. So we're going to stand for that. It's a win-win.
I don't know how they get out of it. I don't know how they get out of it.
Well, that's what I was about to say. Okay, so that's what they did on Monday Night Football. What are they going to do next weekend? We don't know. All we know is that ratings for football, for the most part, as we have discussed many times on this program, are down. Last week in NBC Sunday Night Football down 10%, Fox down 6%. CBS afternoon games were basically even. But here's the thing. There are so many people who are fans of these teams, and they've grown up loving their team. They are so angry at their team for doing things like this, taking a knee or doing a protest, that they have started to destroy their own stuff. Off of Facebook and Twitter, here's some of them.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming?
That is Arvin Gibbs, who says he was a Steelers fan since 1966. He says no more. There are a whole bunch of people who burn their stuff. Denise LaGrange Fox, a New Orleans Saints fan, what she did was she took a lighter fluid and a match to all her stuff, and she said, together to the Saints. Together you have ruined and taken the fun out of sports. I'm calling for a burn of all Saints memorabilia. I am totally disgusted. Screw you, NFL.
How about Robert Williams? He burned $1,000 worth of Steelers gear, and he said, my great uncle's bones are lying at the bottom of Pearl Harbor.
And how about, I think the other thing to keep in mind, I hate to say it, but dollars and cents mean more than burned windbreakers. The first time it's happened, Von Miller, one of the one of the great guys in sports, not only a great player, a great person. Dancing with the Stars might have come into your living room. He's had a sponsor pull out because of his sitting down during the national anthem. That's going to get the NFL's attention. My hope is the NFL understands, along with the Players Union, that in the next 3 days, you have to find a way forward because this is only going to get worse. You waited over a year, and that's why we're in this mess.
It's going to be interesting to see what the ratings look like this weekend because a lot of people didn't know this was going to happen when they were watching the game. So the ratings were down a little bit for NBC and for Fox. They were actually up for CBS. It's going to be interesting to see next weekend after all.
And by the way, the pre-games this past weekend were really high because so many people, after the president's comments, wanted to see whether anybody was going to stand or sit or, take a knee, whatever they did. I think the ratings for the pregame shows were up 30%.
Right. And by the way, healthcare looks like it's doomed. Meanwhile, 10 minutes after the hour. Hey,
Susan
Jillian.
Collins is not for it, Jillian, so that means it's dead.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Unless Ted Cruz could change his mind. His aides say that they're trying to change it.
We're still in the loser zone, yeah.
He would be the fourth.
Well, but they will certainly keep you updated, but we do have some breaking news to get to, guys, right now. So let's get you caught up on what you need to know. 3 Israelis are killed in a terror attack just outside of Jerusalem. A gunman opening fire at the entrance of a settlement in the West Bank, killing an Israeli border policeman and 2 security officers. Police say the Palestinian attacker tried posing as a worker at the town's gate when the gun battle broke out, officers shooting and killing him. 1 other Israeli hospitalized with serious injuries. Also breaking overnight, a police officer is shot in the face after a routine call turned violent. Officer Kayla Mayer ambushed with 5 suspects with an assault rifle as she investigated a suspicious vehicle just outside New York City. Both suspects are in custody. Officer Mayer is expected to survive. Puerto Ricans are so desperate for help after Hurricane Maria, they're literally spelling it out for rescuers. Take a look at the video. Some people writing help on their roof to try and catch the attention of first responders flying above them. Nearly a week after the Category 4 devastated the island, the governor is pleading for Washington to send more aid, saying Puerto Rico is on the brink of a humanitarian crisis. Millions remain without power or clean water. Next hour, we'll speak to Geraldo Rivera live from San Juan with the latest on the recovery. It's a quick look at your headlines as I send it back to you. I almost said Monday, but it's not. It's Tuesday.
It's your first day back in the
Tuesday.
studio.
Don't take us back to Monday.
Myself.
Thanks, Jillian.
Yeah. Well, his story captivated the world when he was captured and jailed in North Korea.
I beg that you see how I am only human, how I have made the worst mistake of my life.
God, hard to watch that, knowing his fate. Otto Warmbier returned to the United States after 18 months in prison, only to die a few days later. This morning, his parents are breaking their silence for the very first time since his death, and they're going to join us coming up live.
Now that's an important story. Then, what do Americans really think about those anthem protests? A panel of former NFL players, professors, and parents here live for a 3-hour-long discussion.
Fox News alert: North Korea claiming the United States has declared war on them. The rogue regime says it is willing to shoot down U.S. warplanes, even if they're in international airspace. So how should that be handled as a threat? Jeff Still is a former U.S. Navy SEAL. He's running as a Republican for the state Senate in Alabama. He joins us right now from Huntsville, Rocket City. Good morning to you, Jeff.
Good morning. Welcome from Rocket City.
Thank you very much, sir. So as President Trump has made very clear that if need be, all options are on the table. But North Korea right now is saying, bring it on, essentially. What should we be doing?
Well, I think we're actually doing the right thing. Let's go back over 20 years in '94 when Clinton made a deal giving $4 billion of energy aid to North Korea. Fast forward 20 years in 2014, and you have President Obama saying he's not afraid to use military might. And now we're dealing with the problem of an intercontinental ballistic missile. Here's the issue. In 2013, we knew they had nuclear capability and they could make a warhead. We should have done something then done because we didn't have to deal with the ballistic missile. Now we do, and I completely agree with the Trump agenda, president's agenda.
And of course, right now we're in the diplomatic phase where it would be great if the country of China would help us out and squeeze North Korea.
That's this is the key to everything is working with China to squeeze that umbilical cord, to start cutting off the oil going into North Korea and cutting off the imports they take from North Korea. And they said they will do it. We'll see.
So, Jeff, you're a successful businessman down there in Alabama. Why do you want to get into politics and run for state senate?
We need a change in Montgomery. Our state is suffering from a lack of political courage. We need someone like myself. I'll take it down there to, with those values and principles that I had as a SEAL, and that's leadership and honesty. We can't afford to continue doing it the way we have been doing it. So for me, bringing down, working on our education system for for the future of our kids, working on passing economic and good legislation that supports business. These are the key things we have to do. And most of all, we need to bring, some ethics back into Montgomery.
Well, we know you are very active in the community. We know Rob O'Neill, our friend the Navy SEAL, is going to be doing a big fundraiser for you down there. And you're actually at that location because our man Todd Pyro is going to be taking the pulse of Alabama regarding the big special Senate race later today from that diner. Jeff Sill, we thank you very much for your service and for joining us live today.
Thank you very much, Steve.
All right. Meanwhile, 20 minutes after the top of the hour on this Tuesday, his story captivated the world when he was freed from North Korea, only to die 6 days later.
I beg that you see how I am only human, how I have made the worst mistake of my life.
Otto Warmbier's parents have not spoken on television since his death until today. They join us live next.
21-year-old American Otto Warmbier, a student at the University of Virginia, put on display for the media by the North Korean government.
I have made the worst mistake of my life.
Bless his heart, Otto was sentenced to 15 years of hard labor for apparently trying to take a propaganda poster from a hotel.
That's not the image that I have of my son in my heart. We were told early on by the past administration that we were urged to keep quiet, and we accepted that.
We'll be fine as a family as soon as you get home.
Hang in there, Tiger Boy. You're coming home.
The Department of State has secured the release of Otto Warmbier.
We're also thankful to Rex Tillerson and to President Trump. They wanted Otto home. Otto's not in great shape right now, and he's been through a real tough time.
He has not engaged in any purposeful movements or behaviors.
Otto had been terrorized and brutalized for 18 months.
A young college student back home to his parents, unresponsive and in a coma.
And I knelt down by his side and I hugged him, and I told him I missed him, and I was so glad that he made it home. I'm able to wear the jacket that he wore.
I just wanted to pass on word that Otto Warmbier has just passed away.
I haven't ever seen him that disturbed or emotional in a very long time.
Our thoughts and our prayers remain with his wonderful family.
Tough to watch. Otto Warmbier's parents are here, Fred and Cindy Warmbier. They're joining us now in their first television interview since that day, since their son came home and then passed away. Thank you for being here. Why did you decide you wanted to tell your story now?
Thanks for having us, Ainsley. It's been 3 months since Otto has died, and we buried him. And our family has had time to come together and process this horrible situation, do some healing. But now we see North Korea claiming to be a victim, and that the world is picking on them. And we're here to tell you, North Korea is not a victim. They're terrorists. They kidnapped Otto. They tortured him. They intentionally injured him. They are not victims. They're terrorists. And we're here to tell the story of what it was like when we met Otto at the airport, or to share with you what it was like when we met Otto at the airport.
Well, you said, we just want you home, Tiger Boy. And Cindy, you said, when you're home, we're going to be just fine. They sent him home in a coma, and 6 days later, he passes away. What was that like when you saw him for the first time after being gone, separated from him for a year and a half?
Well, we thought he was in a coma, but you couldn't call it a coma. When I talked to Senator Portman that morning, he said Otto was on a plane coming home, and I asked him, is there brain damage? And he said, there's severe brain damage. So what we pictured, because we're optimists, was that Otto would be asleep and maybe in a medically induced coma, and then when our doctors here would work with him and he'd get the best care and love, that he would come out of it. And Fred's going to tell you what happened when we went on the plane.
I'll describe to you what it was like for our family when we met Otto at the airport. We were in a waiting room with the medical team as the plane arrived. It was determined that the medical team would go on the plane before our family. They went on the plane. 5 minutes or so later, they came down and they said it was time for our family to go to the plane. It was myself, Cindy, Austin, and Greta. We walked over to the plane. The engines are still humming. They had just landed. We walked up the steps. When we got halfway up the steps, we heard this howling, involuntary, inhuman sound. We weren't really certain what it was. We climbed to the top of the steps, and we looked in, and Otto was on the stretcher across in the plane, and he was jerking violently, making these inhuman sounds. Cindy and Greta ran off the plane. Austin and I walked over to Otto. Otto had a shaved head. He had a feeding tube coming out of his nose. He was staring blankly into space, jerking violently. He was blind. He was deaf. As we looked at him and tried to comfort him, it looked like someone had taken a pair of pliers and rearranged his bottom teeth.
Oh my gosh.
Within 2 days of Otto being home, his fever spiked to 104 degrees. He had a large scar on his right foot. North Korea is not a victim. They're terrorists.
They destroyed him.
They purposely and intentionally injured Otto.
As a parent, how do you get through that? How do you move on from this?
Well, you know, we weren't prepared for what we had. And then when we saw Otto the way he was, we loved him, we're proud of him, but no mother, no parent should ever have gone through what we went through. And the fact that Otto was alone all that time with no one to comfort him is inexcusable. And whatever happened, I mean, why would you do this? This is not...
Why do you think they sent him home?
He was going to die.
How can you question what a terrorist country does?
True.
They're terrorists. This is what they do. They kidnapped Otto. They tortured him.
For allegedly trying to steal a propaganda sign. He's 21 years old, University of Virginia, one of the toughest schools to get into. He's a bright kid. So what is your message for this administration? I know the past administration, you said they told you to stay silent. You credited President Trump and his administration for bringing your son home. What message do you have for him now as we are dealing with this awful, evil dictator, Kim Jong-un?
Absolutely. It was astounding to Cindy and I to discover that North Korea is not listed as a state sponsor of terror. We owe it to the world to list North Korea as a state sponsor of terror.
How are your other children doing, Austin and Greta?
Amazing.
Yeah. Greta and I, when Greta ran off the plane, and I was so worried because she was screaming, because our image of Otto, as you know, was of someone just wonderful, beautiful inside and out, and to see how he came home was too much for us. But I almost passed out, but I got it together, and I rode in the ambulance with him because I did not want him to be alone anymore. He'd been alone for way too long. and we stayed with him and loved him as best as we could.
I'm glad you got to be with him in his final moments. Thank you both for being with us.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.
Thank you for
God
having
bless
us.
you.
Thank you.
More Fox and Friends coming up in just a moment.
The Cowboys players wanted to show unity, but they were very adamant about wanting to separate that message from the national anthem. Sean?
All right, Lisa, and as they take a knee collectively, boos can be heard from this sellout crowd in Arizona.
Wow, that was not a smattering, by the way, and that was the Cowboys last night after a weekend that saw more than 200 NFL players kneeling for protesting the national anthem. Now, Sunday Night Football saw its lowest ratings in more than a decade. Listen, football's high, but they're off about 8 to 10%. And the debate over patriotism and politics seems to be dividing the country, and that's why we're here. We have a great panel of our parents, business owners, former athletes, and professors together to hash this thing out, unscripted and from the heart. We're going to focus on all 3 hours. We'll do one of these segments, and we're going to focus on 4 people at a time. So don't get worried if you don't say anything now. We're going to get to you soon. First off, I want to start with Burgess Owens, former NFL player with the Raiders and Jets. Burgess, first off, you watched that last night. You stood during the national anthem through your playing days. Do you like the way Dallas handled it? Knee before the anthem, stand arm in arm during the anthem.
If they're going to make a message, that's the best way to do it at this point. At the end of the day, it's all about the flags, all about hope in our country, and that's what the flag is always represented. So whatever they can do not to disrespect the flag, then and still get the message out, then I'm okay with.
Emily, you heard there was more than a smattering of boos. The fans are divided from the players in many respects. And Emily Compagno is a former NFL cheerleader, former federal attorney, former criminal defense attorney, but most important, you're here. Emily, your thoughts on that?
I agree with Burgess that I think at this point unification is the most important message. And remember that owners have the option of terminating players if their conduct is deemed detrimental. So I think as this conversation progresses and we see that there's a level of acrimony, it might get to that level.
Kyle Reyes is CEO and silent partner with the Silent Partner Marketing Group. And most importantly, Kyle, you're a dad. A lot of dads are turning around, not showing up. One actually concession worker left in the middle of the game after the players took a knee. Have you given second thoughts until the NFL can sort this out about going to a game?
Of course. I mean, Americans don't want politics shoved down their throat in football. They want beer and wings shoved down their throat. And to see this divisive nature that's happening right now with the NFL, people are very polarized. You see it all over social media. People are sick and tired of having this shoved down their throats and feel disrespected.
Sean Parnell, you are actually a former teammate, but a military teammate, a Green Beret teammate of Alejandro Villanueva, who was a Pittsburgh Steel, who came out of the tunnel and sang the national and put his hand over his heart for the national anthem. However, he now regrets doing that. Do you believe you can separate the message from the military if you sit out the national anthem?
No, I mean, I don't think that you can take a knee for the national anthem and say that you support the military at the same time. I think it's wrong, and I think that the whole message of the protest and what it was initially founded upon is lost. And you know, Donald Trump does what he does best, and he spoke to the hearts of what the vast majority of Americans feel, and that people that play a game for a living in this country and make millions of dollars of doing so should, regardless of what they believe, stand up and thank God that they live in this country that allows them to do that.
So the President of the United States says this is not about race, it's about respecting the anthem. The players say this is not about the anthem, it's not about the country, this is about race. Where do you stand?
About a race?
Yeah.
I don't think it's, well, I think there are issues about race, and it's not about, I don't think necessarily kneeling or standing. There are deeper issues, systematic inequality and injustices that are happening every day, and I think that's the real issue.
Chris, you're Chris,
Caleb.
right?
No, sir.
Caleb, excuse me. So Caleb is a retired U.S. Army lieutenant, former NFL linebacker for the Detroit Lions. So you see a racial inequity in this country, and you like what the players are doing?
I don't necessarily say I like what the players are doing, but I like that they're exercising their constitutional right and taking a knee. So it's not that I actually agree with one side or the other, because I don't think it's at the end of the day about taking a knee or about standing. It's about understanding what America represents. And my teammate, Ali Villanueva, stood with his hand over his heart, and he honored what America meant to him. And equally so, the people who are actually protesting, they're just protesting, hoping that those same ideals are equal for everyone.
Deneen, if you were able to get the message out differently, is sports the right forum? If you don't make it the anthem, if you make it something else, but do talk about some racial inequity in this country, is that a better way to do it?
I disagree with the fact that they're doing it on the football field, Brian, because there is a time and a place for these players to protest. Of course, they have that right to do so, but what they are doing is alienating thousands, if not millions, of their consumers, the fans who want to just have fun, just as the gentleman just mentioned, have a good time with their family and their friends, but instead we're being lectured by individuals with their message that they should be doing on their time and their dime, not the Americans.
Wendy Osefo is a PhD professor and political commentator. Wendy, how have you seen this whole thing evolve from Colin Kaepernick taking a seat to maybe 12 players following him to now 200? Are you happy the way this is trending?
I am happy the way it's trending, because what we have to know is that politics and sports has been intrinsically woven over time. Whether we look at Juan Carlos and Tommy Smith in the 1968 Olympics putting their fist up, Muhammad Ali saying he won't go into a draft, or even the way Jackie Robinson integrated the MLB. This is not something new. This is just transformed into Colin Kaepernick and others. And we have to be very clear here. They're not protesting the flag. What they're protesting is social injustice, and that's what's important.
See, Wendy, that would be very interesting, and that could be 100% true, but you cannot separate people's image of taking a knee in front of the flag with "I'm not protesting the flag." Don't you see that image?
No, I don't, because we can walk and chew gum at the same time. It's not a binary decision. You can protest the flag, and in the other respect, you can say, actually, no, we're not protesting the flag. We're protesting social injustice. So it's not one or the other.
That's fundamental. You just went over the debate. So a show of hands right now. How many people think you can separate the method of protest with what they're protesting? How many people, by show of hands, yes, I can separate the kneeling from the lack of patriotism? So 3 of you. How many can't? How many would be? How many, show of hands, think there is a racial issue in this country and needs to be addressed? Everybody.
Issues of racism. Listen, we're not a perfect country. You have clowns out there that are racist, but it is not blanket across the country. What, 70% of these players are black players? They're making millions of dollars. Are you going to tell me that there's institutional racism in the NFL? These guys would not have this opportunity if that was the case.
And you see, that's problematic for us to say that, right? And the reason I say that is because recently we just saw a player who went to the Mayweather fight and he was thrown on the floor because he was just seen as a black man. They didn't know he was an NFL player. We cannot say just because people are okay in society, like myself, I'm a professor, I do not face racial inequities, because I do.
I don't know details of the Michael Bennett story. He's a Seattle defensive lineman. Real quick, David.
Well, this is where the facts actually matter. The fact is that in this room, the police asked everybody to stay where they were so they could sort out what had happened. He ran. When the police give you that lawful order and you disobey it, that's what happened. So let's stay on the facts on this. By the way, if these players really want to protest, as Colin Kaepernick started, the police and the injustice and the shooting of blacks by police officers, then turn around from the flag and protect the police who stand on the sidelines behind you and protest them. They don't have that. This has gone beyond just what it was originally supposed to be. If they really want to have the guts, turn around and protest these police who protect the parking lots, the stadium, their lives on a daily basis.
All right, we're going to have to stop right there, but we have 2 more hours to go after this. There's no wrong answer. We just want your answers. Thanks so much, and stay tuned. Don't take a shower. We need you in the same outfits in just a little while. All right, straight ahead. President Trump is issuing an updated travel ban. What does that mean, and could it put an end to the controversy? Judge Napolitano says not so fast. He's live next. Then, all eyes in Alabama today for the big Senate run.